Welcome to Giant Cocktails, a podcast where two lifelong fans talk about the San Francisco Giants while drinking homemade cocktails. Now, here are your hosts, Ben and Matthew Henry.
Welcome to another episode of Giant Cocktails. I am your host, Ben Henry, alongside my brother, the cat's pajamas, Matthew Henry. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm loving this week's superlative. Yeah. I mean, better than the cat's meow. I mean, pajamas, that's like, I'll be honest, right before we hit record, we took a little break. I changed into pajamas. And now I feel like, so I'm not only in pajamas, I am the cat's pajamas. And I'm feeling really good about that. So thank you, Ben.
You're welcome. I thought you'd like this one just because you understood it and knew what it meant.
Yeah. I definitely understand that this is a good thing.
Right. Oh, well, that means I chose poorly. You know, I like the ones that are like that are actually compliments, but you still think they're insults.
Yeah, there's no doubt this one is a compliment.
Yeah. So. Yeah, well, you know, sometimes you gotta I gotta play at your level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, thank you. And I'm just gonna walk around today and or this week and tell people that they're the cat's pajamas as often as I can.
Good. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, you know, today, Matthew, today was Super Bowl Sunday as we record this podcast.
Yes, it was.
And around the world, which I don't really fully understand, but around the world, people were watching the Super Bowl. Not me. I didn't watch it.
I watched the second half, and it was already over by then, so yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was, well, anyway, one of the things that people do on Super Bowl Sunday is they eat a lot of cool foods.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was munching on tater tots because my wife, she likes to watch the Super Bowl, even though she hates both of these teams, the Schmeagles and the Chefs. She does not like either of those two teams. And so she made tater tots. Oh. Right? You know, great like football food, right?
Yes.
And I was sitting there and I was
food, really.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying. So this is my uncomfortable truth, Matthew.
Oh.
Because it's time for an uncomfortable truth.
Okay. All right. Let me have it.
Yeah. Tater tots are superior to French fries. They're just the better food. They are better than French fries. Maybe not in theory, but definitely in practice. Like, how many times do you have a limp French fry? Or somebody cuts it in a way that's just stupid? Like those wavy ones?
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with this. I like it because I think in theory I like French fries better, but only when they're perfect. And there's a lot of opportunities to screw up a French fry, but a tater tot, you're 90% of the time you're going to get a reasonable like facsimile of what a tater tot should be.
Yeah, that's right. Like, for example, In-N-Out. Horrible fries. I said it. I stand by it. And if you disagree with me, you're just wrong.
If you ask them to be well done, then they'll fry them twice, and then they're actually a little bit better.
Oh, that does actually sound better, because I was just going to say, if you think In-N-Out fries are so good, let them sit for 10 minutes.
Right?
Just let them sit for 10 minutes, and then eat them. Horrible. And this is a food that you typically eat as takeout. Those things don't survive on the way home.
No.
So, yeah, totally. They should be serving tater tots. They should be, because they're the superior food.
Right. Although,
Matthew, they're both children's food. Tater tots and French fries are both children's food.
Maybe French fries are, but when you call them frites, then they become adult food. With an aioli. You eat them with an aioli.
Right,
then it's an adult food.
Right. Frites with aioli.
Yes. Not fries with mayonnaise. It's
Fries with mayonnaise is just communist.
Well, aioli, they
Okay.
put some garlic in there and they put some other seasonings. And it's
Oh,
actually quite good.
sure. Bougie communist.
Yes. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'll own it. Well, along those lines, my uncomfortable truth is that if I ever serve anything to my children that I like, I always give myself like way more.
Wait, so you take the dad tax?
Absolutely. And they don't even know it. Like I just
yeah, see, that's wrong.
I just give them a little bit and I give me a lot because they're my kids. What are they going to do?
Exactly. Well, what I used to do was when like I'd make them like a peanut butter and jelly, I'd take a big bite out of it, and then I would give it to them, just so that they knew. Just that they knew, right? Like I could have made my own, but I didn't, or maybe I did, and I still took a bite out of yours.
All right. Well, see, my uncomfortable truth is that I just buy the Uncrustables and hand it to them.
Yeah, speaking of children's food, that is pretty bad. Anyway, today is Sunday, February 9th, Super Bowl Sunday. As we said, it was the Schmeagles versus the Chefs. The Dirty Miners did not make it this year. I heard the Dirty Miners didn't even, like, they were eliminated from the playoffs like a week in advance. Like, I asked my wife, I said, wait, are the Dirty Miners in the Super Bowl?
Yeah. Oh, wow. There was no Dirty Miners even in proximity to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's what she said. She said they got eliminated like 2 or 3 weeks before the season ended.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we know what that's like, right, Giants fans? My condolences to those of you who are both.
Oh, I know. It's tough. It's tough. You used to be able to rely on one or the other. And, or, like, if you're a Warriors fan as well, one of the three at least.
Sure. Exactly. Although the Warriors just got Jimmy Butler.
And it was a very good debut. So, yeah. Maybe there's hope.
But as we learned from the end of last week's show, you and I should not talk about basketball.
No, don't even. Don't.
Okay. I do pay a little bit more attention to football than I let on. I do know that they are not the Chefs and the Schmeagles, although I do think they should be.
I like.
And quite honestly, my daughter loves talking about football because whenever she hears like the Seahawks are playing the Bills, she's always imagining like a bunch of guys named Bill running around trying to catch Seahawks, you know? And then she gets horrified when she finds out that the Seahawks like beat the Bills, right? Because that sounds just horrible. And I was like, well, the Eagles destroyed the Chefs today. So, and yeah, not the way you would have expected that fight to go. Right?
No. You think the chefs with their knives would have the hands up.
Right.
No.
So my daughter, she likes animals. So she's like, good. Stick it to those chefs. And I agree because you know what? I heard a headline, saw a headline. That's how you do headlines, right? You read with your eyes, not with your ears.
Right.
That Patrick Mahomes was crying when he went off the field.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, good. That's so sad when bad things happen to good people. But anyway,
is it really a bad thing?
I'm glad.
Though? Like, I mean, you lost a game, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, those guys, every game they played this year was like too close, for them to be 17-2 going into this game.
That's right. That's agreed.
So I think a blowout was kind of in the writing, although the conspiracy theorists said, because of the red and yellow logo, it meant that the NFL was going to have the Chefs win.
Well, and not even Taylor Swift could make that happen. So
yeah. There's conspiracy channels out there, Matthew, where they talk both about how the Earth is flat and the NFL is fixed.
Same people, for sure. The Venn diagram
they
on
definitely
that
are the same people.
The Venn diagram on that is the circle. Yeah.
Yes. So it's the same people. But it's those same people that will tell you that WWE is fixed too, which is definitely not true. Anyway, yeah. So, Super Bowl Sunday. On the baseball side of things, Matthew, we are just 3 days away. On Wednesday, 2 days away from when our listeners get this into their ear holes from Pitchers and Catchers Reporting.
Hallelujah. Bring it on.
It is always darkest before dawn, though.
That is right. And Super Bowl ends, and then baseball begins. There's
right.
just like 3 days of like nothing, and then all of a sudden all is right in the world again. Yeah,
That's right. I mean, but it is just pitchers and catchers.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'll take it too. And on that point, Matthew, maybe we should start talking about baseball
Let's
on
do
our
that.
baseball podcast.
We should probably do that. Yes.
All right. That means you have to ask us our trivia question, which is all about baseball. Go.
Well, about that, I figured because it was the Super Bowl that we should do a football themed.
Damn it, Matthew.
Question. So today's trivia question, Ben, is what professional football team called the stadium we now call Oracle Park home? And this is courtesy of Brute Sentiment on the SF Giant subreddit.
Ooh, I know the answer to this question.
Do you?
I do.
I did not, actually.
and in fact, I actually remember how their first game ended.
Oh. Well, maybe
The
you can
first
talk
game
about
ended.
this.
The clock was running, winding down. They got into field goal range, and they needed to kick a field goal to win. I don't remember if the game was tied or if they were losing by less than 3 points. But the San Francisco team had to run onto the field while the clock was ticking down, and then kick the field goal as time was expiring to win, which they did. So they won their first game. I don't remember if it was at Oracle Park or on the road. But I do remember that is how the San Francisco Blanks won that game. And I'm going to go with... No, that's too close. I was going to I was going to choose a D&D thing, but then it was like, yeah, because there's two sides to that, and they hate each other. But anyway, I'm going to go with the Orcs, Matthew.
The
San
Orcs.
Francisco Orcs.
I thought you were going to say the Siths, but okay, all right.
No, that's Matthew. That's not D&D. That's Star Wars.
Oh, well, I know, but that would have been more appropriate. Anyway, we will find out how wrong Ben is at the end of the show.
Enough with the banter. Let's talk cocktails.
Oh, okay, Bob. Yeah, let's do that.
What are you drinking, Matthew?
Well, Bob, I was sitting there watching the Super Bowl, the second half, mind you, and because I was busy the first half, and I got home in time to watch the Kendrick Lamar and his diss track and all that. But then I watched the second half, and as I'm watching this, I'm thinking I need to create a cocktail that's like, I don't know, like Mahomes Blood or something like that, right? But then I did a little test in the third quarter, and it didn't turn out well. So then I pivoted, and I started thinking about, well, actually, a really popular cocktail or famous cocktail called the Aviation. And the Aviation has gin, maraschino liqueur, and creme de violette, along with lemon juice. And I'm like, well, what if I made this like an Eagles version? So anyway, what's in a Fly Eagles Fly? Well, this is a riff on the Aviation. It has 2 ounces of London dry gin, 3/4 ounces of lime juice because the limes are green, a 1/2 ounce of Luxardo maraschino liqueur, and a 1/2 ounce of Green Chartreuse. And I know not everybody has access to Green Chartreuse, but I do. So I used it, and no, it's green, and it's Eagles. So I did that, and then you put all those into a cocktail shaker with ice, give it a good shake for 10 to 12 seconds, double strain that into a chilled coupe glass, and I garnished it with a dehydrated lime wheel, and I'm calling it, Ben, Fly Eagles Fly. So a riff on the Aviation, because aviation is flying, but this is Fly Eagles Fly. That's what I'm drinking today.
That's a tasty cocktail.
It really is, Bob. Actually, I'm really pleased with this. I think it was a good mix of what the traditional Aviation is.
What are you drinking, Ben?
Well, thank you for asking, Bob. That is very kind of you. Listeners, I really apologize for what I'm about to do. I didn't intend for us to be this bougie and this elitist and this exclusive. And I also didn't intend to make a Schmiegel-oriented cocktail. I just kind of accidentally backed into it. Matthew gave me as a gift yesterday, we actually saw each other yesterday, lemons that he says are actually limes. They're yellow, but he swears they're limes. And I think he talked about them last week. And so he said, you got to make something special out of them. And I was like, all right, well, what's a lime cocktail? And I was like, a margarita. I was like, I can't just make a regular margarita. I was like, oh, well, since my lemons are not green, I should put something green in there to green it up a little bit. So I chose Green Chartreuse, and I didn't know that Matthew was going to do that. And I know that Green Chartreuse costs like $1,000 a bottle, and it's just like you can't find it anywhere, and it's never on the shelves. And so I really apologize for that, but it's so good. Anyway, it's 1.5 ounces of añejo tequila, because if you're going to be bougie, you might as well go full on bougie. Then you need 1/2 ounce of Green Chartreuse, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and then I put in almost 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. And some would argue this doesn't need any, but the Green Chartreuse isn't the sweetest in the world. So if you want to put in a little bit of simple syrup, I would say that's quite all right. So I would recommend 1/4 ounce, though, not 1/2 ounce. But I overpoured. What are you going to do? You put all of that into a shaker with ice. You shake that until it's chilled. And then you strain that into a rocks glass with fresh ice. And you can salt that rim or not. It's up to you. I don't feel like it needs it. But anyway, that's what I'm drinking today. A Chartreuse-arita.
That's a tasty cocktail.
Chartreuse-arita.
Chartreuse-arita.
I like it.
Rita in the green dress? No, Chartreuse-arita.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Margaret in the green dress.
Oh, now you're getting it. All right. Well, I think either one of those works.
No, it's Chartreuse-arita. That's what I said first.
Okay. Chartreuse is hard to source. It is a rare liqueur nowadays because the cocktail boom has kind of created a scarcity for this. Much like maybe above average baseball players on the San Francisco Giants.
Wow, nice segue, Matthew. You did it.
Thanks. I was trying really hard. Ben, I thought today, I think we're going to talk about projections because Fangraphs has this neat little tool where they kind of bring all the different projection tools into one, and they kind of show you what the projections are for the San Francisco Giants as well as pitchers and hitters. And
right,
so,
how they're going to do as a team and individually.
Right. And frankly, when I saw these, Ben, I was like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, I mean, all those computers and all those nerds, all the working so hard for all those years. And you're just kind of like, yeah, I could have told you that. I mean, right? That's kind of how it felt when I saw all these. I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I think we covered this in a previous episode where if you take out 2021, since 2019, the Giants have averaged an 80-82 record. And guess what? Fangraphs is projecting the Giants to finish at, Ben.
92 and whatever the other side of that number would be.
That's right. It's 80-82.
Oh.
Now
they're 70.
They're actually 81-81. They actually are one game better. The projection for 2025 over what they did in 2024, which, as you recall, was 80-82. The interesting thing is that the Padres are right there at 82-80. So only one game difference between the Giants and the Padres. And there are a lot of other projection systems out there that the Giants are actually projected to finish above the Padres. But I'm curious, Ben, what do you think about this, like Padres Giants kind of just sitting right together in the National League West?
Well, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like being anywhere near the Padres. I definitely don't like being behind the D-bags. So I don't like it. But am I surprised? No, because the Padres are like, they seem like a team that's frozen. They've done literally nothing this offseason. I think they signed like a backup catcher. That's it. That's all they've done. And, you know, they're caught up in this really nasty ownership dispute, which is like, it's so typical. It's like, oh, look at all these rich people fighting over this thing. Which, I mean, it makes sense though, right? Right? Because whoever gets to own and then sell this baseball team later is going to be a billionaire. So I guess it makes sense to fight over the ownership of it. Because they're all like, no, the dead guy left it to me. And, it's nice to see family fighting like that. But anyway, it has gotten the Padres into a situation where they're locked, right? Because who's dictating direction for them right now, right? And, like, what can they do? And it does sound like even if they do have a direction, that direction seems to be cut payroll. Yeah.
Well, and even right now, they're actually above the luxury tax payroll for this year because apparently a lot of their contracts they have on the books have escalated for this next season. So it wouldn't even surprise me by opening day that they actually shed, some payroll.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. So Arise is a big name that people are talking about being tradable or a target for them to trade. And the Giants have been actually talked about as a possible destination for Arise. I don't know that he's a great fit for the Giants. I mean, he's a good hitter, and the Giants need good hitters. He doesn't have a lot of power, and he's kind of a position, like, the positions that he can play are odd.
I don't care. I don't care. Let's take him. I'll take him.
You take him? Take him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, he'd play first base or second base, Matthew. Like, those are his positions, and he's not a second baseman. He's a first baseman. So he's a light hitting.
We don't have
baseman.
a DH, Ben. We could just, we could throw him around there.
I mean, we don't have a DH because they don't want a DH. So I'm not saying I wouldn't take him if for something cheap, But we weren't planning on talking about trades. But if we're going to trade for anybody, like, I want the guy that I was clamoring for all the way back at the trade deadline in July, which is Luis Robert Jr., who the Giants have been linked to.
Yeah, but they wanted Bryce Eldridge, so I don't know.
Right. Well, everybody wants Bryce Eldridge, but they didn't trade Robert Jr., which tells you whatever else the Giants were offering, the White Sox don't want. Or they're hoping to get a better deal by letting things develop, right? They're hoping that teams will get desperate as they get closer to opening day, and they can get a better deal from somebody else. Because whatever the Giants offered that didn't include Eldridge wasn't enough for the White Sox to pull the trigger. So that tells me it's highly unlikely that the Giants will be the ones who get to trade for Robert. So anyway, that's why I don't like that the Padres and the Giants are ranked closely together. Yeah, okay. I went off the rails there, Matthew, but I honestly, I'm not surprised because the Padres have done less than the Giants, and I think we're in a very different situation than the Giants, right? It's kind of clear what the Giants are doing, right? They're like, okay, let's see what we got. That's what the Giants are doing.
Yeah.
And then we will address our problems from there probably in 2026. But for right now, we're going to see what we got. That's not where the Padres are. The Padres are like win now mode. So, in all honesty, I'd rather be in the Giants situation than the Padres situation because I just don't see how the Padres get better from here. It feels like they're on a long, slow decline.
Well, and if you look at last year's record versus this year's projections on Fangraphs, I mean, the Giants are actually picked to improve by one game, whereas the Padres are picked to not. Well, what's the opposite of improve?
Deprove
by 11 games. So yeah, there's an opening there at least for the Giants to be better than the Padres. Still a little bit of ways from the Diamondbacks, and quite a bit of ways from the Dodgers.
You don't say. Okay, the one thing that I will say about these projections, though, also, Matthew, is the Dodgers are projected to win 98 games, which feels low. Like, I look at that Dodgers roster and I think that's better than the 2021 Giants. It's a better roster than the 2021 Giants.
But they won 98 games last year.
Yeah, and
where have they gotten better?
Shohei Ohtani, Blake Snell.
Okay,
Michael Conforto.
Michael Conforto. That's where they've gotten worse.
Matthew, Michael Conforto was decidedly average last year. And he'll go and he'll be the worst guy in their lineup.
Batting ninth, Michael Conforto.
Batting ninth, average Michael Conforto. Blake Snell. And then the Sasaki. Other than that, Matthew, the Dodgers didn't do anything.
I forgot about the Blake Snell thing.
Did you forget that Shohei's going to be pitching this year?
Yeah, but I'm not necessarily thinking that that's going to improve them.
They had atrocious starting pitching last year, and everybody got hurt.
Yeah, but you're assuming that Ohtani's just going to step in after a year away and be good. I don't know if that's going to be the case.
Well, if we get back to Giants projections, all of the Giants projections say that Robbie Ray's going to pitch 20. It's going to start 28 games for the Giants.
Which, okay.
And I see what you mean, though, right? Because he's coming off of his injury at a different time, so maybe he does 28 starts. But I think my point is that these projections, they don't really mean a whole lot, right? I mean, I don't it's really funny to me. Like, all of these people do all of this work and all of this effort, and then what their goal is to come up with a projection system that is as close as it can be to accurate for as many players as possible. And so inherently that means they can't catch the outliers, right? And that's honestly what we care about as fans. The breakout players, the unexpected regressions.
Yes, that's where the hope comes from. And I mean, looking at last year, if you look at all their projections, they're pretty much in line with what happened last year. Especially in terms of the team aspect of it. Now, you could probably find some individual outliers, but I mean, as far as team goes, the Giants are still picked to finish fourth.
Yeah, but you know what? If you go back and I think you look at last year's projections, I don't think they had Tyler Fitzgerald and Elliot Ramos doing what they did. Right?
No, they did not.
And so they probably didn't show up on their projections very much at all. So that would suck because they're still mediocre. But what I'm saying, listener, is that they could be mediocre in a totally interesting way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you look at somebody like Mason Black could all of a sudden just skyrocket and do what Robbie Ray was projected to do and still get us.
Right. And Robbie Ray gets hurt early on, and then that's why your projections stay the same. But you have something that's exciting and a breakout for one of your great players. Now, ideally, we hope that Robbie Ray does start 28 games, is as good as they say he's going to be, which is pretty good. They think he's going to be the second best starter in the Giants rotation, which is not a ridiculous prediction. I think the biggest surprise for him is that he's going to start 28 games. But so obviously you hope that one of these guys breaks out. Now, the big guy that I really hope they're wrong about and that they're very wrong about is Tyler Fitzgerald.
Oh,
because
okay.
if you look at the individual projections for Tyler Fitzgerald, they're not great. They're not great at all. They think he's going to maintain his same walk rate, but they think he's going to hit 50 points worse. And his weighted runs created plus, therefore, is going to be average or below average, depending on which projections that you look at. So for me, on the offensive side, that's the player that I really, really hope they're wrong about. And that has his breakout. And, yeah.
Well, I would argue he had his breakout last year, and now we just want him to maintain that, or at least be close to what he did last year.
Right. I mean, well, yeah, he proved that last year wasn't a fluke. Yeah. And so next year his projections will be better. Because they're all projecting that he won't be as good. And I think a big part of that are his his StatCast stats, right?
Yeah.
Although, bat speed, exit velocity, launch angle, and of course, my favorite stat, BABIP.
BABIP. Well, I'm looking at these different, like on Fangraphs, they list, there's like Zips, depth chart, there's Steamer, there's ATC, the Bat X, whatever that means, and Oopsie, which is my favorite. I love just saying Oopsie. But you look at like the one that's the most bullish on the Giants is Zips DC,
right?
Which I think stands for depth chart.
Yes.
And there are, according to that one, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that are above 100 on weighted runs created plus. And the ones that kind of jump out at me on that are Gerard Encarnacion for one. But interestingly enough, they only project him to play 53 games. So like at some point they think he's just going to die. Like, I don't know. The other one was Wade Meckler, and now I'm looking at that. He doesn't even count because they only project him to play 3 games. But I feel like there's Matt Chapman, Willie Adamos, and Elliot Ramos, and even Lamont Wade Jr., Jung-Hoo Lee projected to be a 108 weighted runs created plus over 143 games. And then after that, it drops off pretty good. So projections are interesting, Ben. Like, they're kind of fun to look at and like wonder about. But really what it seems to me what they're doing is they're kind of like, and I know it's way beyond what this is, but it just seems like they take last year and go, yeah, he's going to be a little bit like last year, but either better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, both of them, they take recent performance, they take their age, and then they compare that to historical aging trends. So how that age, either improves or deproves, worsens. Matthew is the actual antonym, but I'm going to go with deprove.
I like it.
So yeah, that's typically how they do that. A lot of these projections are also based on if they played a full season. So the difference between Zips and Zips DC is that Zips is if the player played a full season, this is what their stats would be. Whereas Zips DC says, no, they're not going to play a full season because they can't all do that because they're all on the same roster. So Then they try to estimate how many games they would play for that particular team, which is why Gerard Encarnacion has those 50-plus games. I would say, though, that if Gerard is playing really, really well with those stats, then he's either platooning, which that makes sense, or he should play more games. Yeah. Right? And whoever is not performing well should play less. So it seems to me that if Gerard is playing that well, he'll play more than 50. But it is interesting that he's rated that high, right? A guy that was he was playing in Mexico last year. So that tells you what the projections really say. They really do weight recent performance, and they cannot take into account breakouts, surprises. They just can't. But because they do use historical performance. Now, some of them also incorporate StatCast stats. So things like exit velocity and launch angle. So that's the difference between the two projections, the BAT and the BAT X, right? The BAT X is based on, well, they throw a lot of extra things in there, but it's basically just like, it's projections based on previous performance, age curves, and then like what effects things like ballpark and umpire might have on you, right? The BAT X throws all these extra little parameters in there. Sorry, the BAT does. The BAT X does all of that, and it adds in exit velocity and launch angle, the StatCast stats. So the new one with the funny name, Oopsie, really does try to add in more around. They're really trying to predict how well a player will develop. So they put more emphasis on improvement. So it's less based on historical data or individual historical data, and more based on historical data plus how players historically improve over time. Now, all of this is a vast oversimplification of all of the work and things that goes into this. But that just goes back to my other point, which is like they put a lot of work into it, but at the end of the day, like they cannot take into account outliers. Like they just can't, because that is counter to how all of these things work. And so, at the end of the day, I don't think there's really any surprises in these projections. right?
No, there isn't. And they're not all good. You know, I mean, there's
No.
especially on the offensive side. I mean, you know, someone like Patrick Bailey, for example, you know, when you're just looking at his offense, it doesn't look great. And his weighted runs created plus is like in the 80s, which is, you know, 15 to 20% below league average. But obviously he's much more valuable than that on the defensive side. But when you're still trying to score runs, you're looking at guys who can create runs, and there's not a whole lot of guys that are like significantly better than league average. I mean, you got your Matt Chapman and Willie Adames, who for sure have that history. You got Lamont Wade Jr. up there, but then he only plays in like 100 games because he gets injured. Right. So these projections kind of factor that in as far as, oh yeah, he's only going to play in 105 games. You know, you got Elliot Ramos. Actually, they're pretty bullish on Elliot. And if we, you know, can get another year out of Elliot that was like last year, then we'll take it, right? Because then that means he's established himself as a good major league player. But then you got guys like Jung-Hoo Lee, who's kind of all over the place. He's got, in some projections, he's like number 1. And in some projections, he's, number 7, but always slightly, at least above average in terms of weighted runs created plus. So I don't know. There's no one that we don't have like an Aaron Judge or someone like that that's like 130 plus, you know, or something like that. We got a lot of guys that if they play well, then okay, we're at least league average or better. But no one that just jumps out and was like, okay, they're going to be the best, you know, at creating runs. So.
Yeah, and we didn't need a computer to tell us that.
No, we didn't. Exactly. It's like, okay, that checks for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this. The one thing about Bailey is that he is usually fine in the first 2.5 months of the season, and then he falls off. So if there's a way that they could figure out how to not have him have that big fall off, then maybe he can break out of that projection, of that mold. So there's a guy who could, I think, change things if he can find a way to not have that second half swoon. But again, yeah, like there are no surprises here. Like, you know, there's just nothing about these projections that make you think that the Giants are better than they appear to be on paper. And, you know, but again, I think at the same time, this team has a lot of question marks around it because it's young, right? And at least we have that. At least this isn't a lot of like, oh, well, this injured guy could have a bounce back year, right? Which is where I feel like we've been in the years past. And in 2021, we experienced that. That did happen.
Yeah.
But now at least the question marks are all because they're young, unestablished players for the most part, right? And that's where the upside is. And I feel like that is the place where these projections can be the most incorrect, is because young players don't have that history of playing time for these things to pull from. So, you know, I think there's a little bit of hope here, but yeah, man, I don't think the projections tell us anything different than what everybody else has been telling us. This team's a mediocre team.
Yeah, well, the number of players that are above average are not. There's not a huge number, and then our projected record kind of checks that out. And so I think what we have to, but you know, and what's interesting is if you go back to like a lot of these projection people, they don't like keep their projections online after the year that you've kind of like, I guess they don't want you to see how wrong they were, like, you know? And so like, I would just wonder if you go back in 2021, what did they project the Giants to be? Right. I mean, there's always hope that the Giants will outperform, or any team for that matter, will outperform their projections. And we went over that last week as far as like what do the Giants need to have happen to make the playoffs? And
I don't know, man.
There are a lot of things. Ben.
I think we need another strategy. We need another theory. We need another way for this team to be better. And I don't know what that is.
I got one.
Wait, what?
I've been thinking about this.
Okay. Wait, you've been thinking
about this? Yeah. I know. Well, so Ben, I don't know if you know this, but we're in the National League West. Okay.
Yes, I did know that. Right.
And unfortunately, there are 3 teams that are either really above us or like right there with us that are kind of competitive. But there's one team that all the projections agree is by far like one of the worst teams in baseball.
Yes.
It happens to be in our division.
That's right. Yeah.
That is the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, as we like to say. What is it that we like to say, Bob?
At least we're not the Rockies.
That's right. At least we're not the Rockies.
Exactly. So with that in mind, Ben, I
Okay.
have a strategy for 2025 that could get us into the playoffs.
All right. Well, let me have it.
Okay. So there are 162 games, right, in a season.
Okay. Yes.
They play the Rockies 13 times.
That's right.
Okay.
They do. They
So
do.
if you subtract those 13 games,
Okay.
and then so that makes that there's 149 games.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the Giants went 500, and I'm not even going to give them credit for like being, because it doesn't evenly.
Right.
You
Right.
can't win
74 and a half. You
of
can't.
of odd number of games, right?
Right.
So let's say the Giants go 74 and 75 against
Right.
the rest
Okay.
of
So,
the league.
which I mean, they can do that because that's what they do.
That's right. They're a 500 team, right? So
Right. They're a 500 team. Okay. So they go
against the
500
rest of
against the rest of the league, and
and then they sweep the Rockies. Okay, so they go 13-0 against the Rockies.
Okay.
That means that they would finish with 87 wins. Okay, and in some years, many years, that squeaks you into the playoffs.
that does.
Okay.
I mean, that worked in the AL. I think an 87 team made it in the AL.
Right.
It was,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It was
So
89
there you
teams.
go.
89 wins last year from the NL. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Or they just need to like find a way and go 75 or 76 and 73.
Okay, well, whatever. But
Right.
then they got the Rockies and they sweep the Rockies. Okay?
And they sweep the Rockies.
Okay, which they played really well in Colorado.
What are you talking about? Whenever the Giants go to Colorado, everybody always says, well, anything can happen in Colorado. And then you get the sense that the Colorado Rockies just destroy everybody in Colorado. But you're telling me that hasn't happened to the Giants?
The Giants actually over the last decade have actually done really well against the Giants. Now, historically, maybe
Against the
back in the
Rockies.
80s and 90s, that wasn't the case. But now the Giants actually have done well against the Rockies, both at home and on the road. So I think there is a legitimate possibility that they sweep the Rockies 13-0 over the entire season.
Okay.
So
you
that
know
would
what?
put them at 87 wins, and then they squeak into that third wild card. Then the three-headed monster of Webb, Ray, and Verlander take care of business.
Right,
And Bryce
okay.
Eldridge, who gets called up in September and added to the Major League roster,
Because of
goes
an
on a
injury,
tear
right.
and wins the World Series MVP, and the Giants win the World Series.
And the Dodgers don't. Which
Well, no, because the Giants would sweep them in the opening round.
right behind Webb, Ray, and Verlander, as you
Exactly.
said, with like three
With
splash
Bryce
hits
Eldridge
from
hitting
Eldridge.
home runs in
yeah
each of the first three games. Yeah.
You know, that sounds crazy. Okay, that sounds crazy on the surface, Matthew, because you're like, who would ever win an entire season series against a team? That just doesn't happen. But au contraire, mon frère.
Are you going to bring up the Braves?
This
Are you gonna
actually
bring up the
has
Braves?
happened to the Rockies. I know. In 1993, the Atlanta Braves went undefeated, I think in like 18 games against the Rockies. I believe the Braves swept 18 games from the Rockies in 1993 and won 104 games to the Giants 103, so the Giants didn't even make the playoffs. This, as we all know, is my favorite Giants team of all time, the one that I would put up against any of those fools that won the actual pennant and expect to win 9 times out of 10 every time. That doesn't make any sense. But my whiskey, my margarita, my Chartreuse-arita went empty a long time ago.
I'm noticing that your drink is decidedly dark now.
Yeah, it's well, I'd like to say it's rum and Coke Zero, but now it's just Coke Zero. Anyway, so this could I'm down with this, Matthew. I'm down with this, but I do want to do some double checking because
No, you don't need to do any double checking. It's been double checked.
well, there's one thing that concerns me though. I just
There's
want to
nothing
bring
that
up.
concerns you. The Giants could sweep the Rockies and get into the playoffs.
Why do I get a sense that you're trying to like trick me into not using my brain on this one?
Because sometimes your brain is just gets in the way.
But you know, sometimes your optimism gets in the way.
No, it's all about heart, Ben. Okay,
feel
just have some heart.
I feel like there's a flaw in this logic.
There's no flaw. Okay, the Giants just need to sweep.
They
play 500 against everybody else. They sweep the Rockies. They get into the playoffs.
I mean, they went 10-3 against the Rockies last year, so this seems totally. They went 10-3 against the Rockies last year.
Well, there's that. Okay, but that was maybe Bryce Eldridge comes up at the end of the year and gets an extra win. Verlander and Robbie Ray, who didn't actually pitch against the Rockies, actually have a win.
I found the flaw, Matthew. I found the flaw.
No, there's no flaw.
There's a flaw in this plan. I regret to inform you, there's a pretty big flaw. Because your premise is that the Giants are a 500 team against everybody except the Rockies.
Yes.
Yes. Last year, the Giants won how many games?
80.
That's right. They went 80 and 82. They beat the Rockies how many times?
10 times.
That's right. What's 80 minus 10?
70.
What's 82 minus 3?
82 minus 3 is 79.
What is 70 and 79, Matthew?
149.
70 and 79 is 9 games under 500.
So
the San Francisco Giants are not a 500 team when you subtract the Colorado Rockies. In fact, if you subtract the Rockies...
They weren't last year, but they could be this year.
And the White Sox... no. I'm just...
Yes, the Giants could be 500 because you had what's that guy that was like supposed to be a Cy Young winner that like totally sucked it in the first half. Like you could we have Robbie Ray and Justin Verlander now. Like there's a whole different like set of possibilities.
We don't have that loser Blake Snell anymore. We've got Robbie Ray and Justin Verlander now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And that's actually, he did suck pretty bad. He was pretty awful.
He was. Like, you got to add at least 3 or 4 wins.
I don't know, Matthew. I liked this theory up until the fact that I realized that we had to subtract the Rockies from it to test its viability. And it's like, once you take the Rockies away, the Giants aren't a 500 team. They're a bad team.
They were last year, but not this year.
Okay, so what you're saying is they're going to be good enough to improve by 4 games against the rest of the league, and then 3 games against the Rockies.
Yes, that's what
because they don't have Blake Snell anymore, and they do have Robbie Ray, Justin Verlander,
and Willie Adames. And at the end of the year, Bryce Eldridge, and there's lots, and an improved Tyler Fitzgerald, and an Elliot Ramos from the beginning of the year. Yeah, there's and Jung Hoo Lee from the the whole year. So there's reasons to believe, Ben.
There's reasons to believe that they could go 500 and sweep the Rockies.
Yes.
God, it must be so nice to be so dumb and so happy.
Okay, well, it's nice to be this happy. Okay, like I'm just telling you, you should join the bandwagon. You should just
Matthew,
let go of all your
I'm too smart.
negativity.
I'm too smart. It just makes me grumpy.
Yeah, well, being too smart sometimes just is a pain in the ass.
I agree.
Just let it go, Ben. Just let it go.
Let it go. Let's let it go. I should inhibit myself. I should inhibit myself more so that I can just be happier.
Yes.
Be more ignorant and therefore more blissful.
Be a positive Giants fan like we all are.
Well, you know what, Matthew? I don't think we need to sweep the Rockies. I think all we need to do is put Bryce Eldridge at first base on opening day and just let it roll, baby.
Oh, see? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. See? You have a crazy idea of sweeping the Rockies. I have a crazy idea of putting a 20-year-old at first base and calling it done. I like it, Matthew. I like that you're thinking outside of the box. I like that you're coming up with strategies that sound feasible but are totally ridiculous. Because this is the perfect time for that. Perfect time for that.
I mean, we're just getting into a granular level of how the Giants could make the playoffs. But I'm not the only one that's optimistic going into a season. Like we're like I said last week, we're all 0-0 right now.
Right.
Okay. Every team.
Even the Rockies and the White Sox.
Shohei Ohtani could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Okay, Freddie Freeman could
Be old.
throw out his back, tomorrow,
He could just
and
be old.
so there's no guarantees that any team is going to be as good as they are on paper, and so this is the time to dream, Ben. This is the time to figure out how the Giants could make the playoffs, and I'm telling you that if they're just average against everyone else and kick the ass out of the Rockies, then there is a legitimate shot at making the playoffs.
You
And
know
I don't
what?
think that
You're right.
is very
You're,
out of
You're
whack.
right. And I want to call this the revenge of 1993. I'm on board. Let's do it.
Thank you.
And that's why these projections are stupid. Because they take all the fun out of it.
That's right. They're just computers.
Right.
Just,
well, and
plugging
they just,
away things. They
they
don't
let
have
us-
heart.
Yeah, they don't let White Sox fans or, Rockies fans think that they're in first place and can win it next year. Yeah, those projections can just take it and go shove it.
Exactly. See, Ben, I'm glad that you're coming around to this because I feel like this is the time, spring training, where hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in here is, I feel like this is a legitimate path.
This is actually
is
a really
not
good
just
idea.
making this up.
I'm thinking about this now because think about how important every Rockies game will be right now. Right? Can you imagine watching that as a fan? The playoffs are on the line in every Rockies game. Because if the Giants lose, it's devastating. Devastating hit to their playoff chances every time the Giants lose to the Rockies. Which makes, for exciting baseball. I don't know what the schedule says, but they got to play them early, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
boom, right away, playoff baseball. Do you think though we got to get somehow? Melvin's got to know this, right? Because he's got to know that he's got to win every Rockies game. He's got to do things a little bit differently.
That's right. He's got to manage it like the World Series.
That's right. It's Game 7.
That means somebody struggles in the second inning.
Because if you think about it, that's basically what it is. Every Rockies game is a Game 7. This is amazing. I love it. All right, there you go. And that's why the Giants are going to make the playoffs.
Listeners, you heard it here first. The Giants have a
Rockies.
path to the playoffs if they just can handle the Rockies.
Sweep the Rockies, baby.
And I'm even going to go so far as they may not even have to sweep the Rockies. They could just there's always one team where you get a little lucky against. Maybe
I think
that
you're pushing
that
it now.
team,
I think you're pushing it now, man. You're pushing it. You're pushing it. I think this is. You should have just taken.
This is probably
the
the
victory.
Fly Eagles Fly talking, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm on my second one, by the way. So
Oh
this
dear.
might be-
Yeah. Matthew's flying now. Yeah, I think what we should do, Matthew, is it's getting towards the end of the show. We should answer our trivia question.
Okay, let's do that, and then we can just dream about the Giants sweeping.
That's right, sweep the Rockies. Yeah.
Okay. So Ben, the trivia question was: what professional football team called the stadium we now call Oracle Park home?
The San
Now, remember
Francisco
this.
Demons.
That is right.
That is right. I was going to say the Devils, but I thought that was
Demons
too.
Of the XFL in 2001. There was only
right.
1 year.
That's right.
The Demons led the league in attendance that year, actually, with just over 35,000 fans a game. Maybe some of our listeners even attended a Demons game.
Maybe they did. And I looked it up. They beat the LA Extreme at Pac Bell Park
Yes.
in
Pac
their
Bell.
opening game on that walk-off field goal. And they won by 2 points.
If you go and look at their their graphics and their logo and all that, it definitely looks like a Sith. I feel like.
You feel like that looks like a Sith Lord?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure.
Yeah, got the whole face kind of thing going. Got some horns on it. Yeah, it's definitely the Sith Lord for sure.
Are you confusing Sith Lord with well, what is his name? See, never mind.
Well, the
yeah,
dude
you're
that's
right.
red and black. The dude that's red and black. I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I confusing him with somebody? I don't know.
No, he is a Sith Lord, but he's not the Sith Lord. He's not even a lord. He's an apprentice. Darth Maul.
That's who I'm. Yes.
Yes.
That's
he looks
who
like
I'm
Darth Maul.
mistaken. He does.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would agree. He does have a little Darth Maul qualities going on there. So he looks like a Sith Darth Maul.
Okay. Yeah. I'm getting my Star Wars metaphors a little confused.
Right, because
Okay.
Count Dooku was a Sith, and he just looked like a regular dude.
Agreed. All right.
Anakin
all right.
Skywalker looked like a regular dude until he tried to do the flat backflip and over Obi-Wan, even though Obi-Wan had the high ground, which is like, this is duh. And, and then he got all burned up. And,
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us this episode. Thank you for sticking to the end. Next week, we'll actually talk about real things that happen with the Giants, I'm assuming.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm hoping. I'm hoping.
We'll be talking about guys' velocity. I think that's it. Because,
but we will be here next week.
Okay.
Because we're back on a weekly basis.
That's right. We're back on a weekly basis. Yeah, pitchers and catchers.
And we're going to talk about all those pitchers and catchers because there are a lot of them. There are a lot of pitchers and catchers, folks.
Well, yeah.
We could do a whole episode on pitchers and catchers.
That's right. Can't wait.
We'll have to,
Can't
because that's
wait.
all that's going to be there. So anyway, folks, don't forget to follow us on the socials at Giant Cocktails on the platform formerly known as Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram and Threads. Okay. And we'll post our recipes on there eventually. But you can also find them in the show notes. Don't forget that you can also leave us comments on both YouTube and Spotify on any of our episodes. Ben dutifully checks those every week.
Hang on, I got to go check those.
It's been great talking to you. Ben, it's been great talking to you as well. Until next week, cheers, my friend.
Cheers, Matthew. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Giant Cocktails Podcast. Until next time, bottoms up.
You don't ever check those things, do
I
you?
never check those things. What are you talking about? All right, here, signing into Spotify now. Nope, we have new comment.
Oh, we do.
I don't know. It's going to be old. Oh, nope, it says we're all caught up.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it said we had a new one because it's. Oh yeah, no, it was Chris Roberts from 4 months ago.
Yeah, our latest review is from SMB Forever. And they clearly use ChatGPT to write their review.
Well, good.
Step up to the
That's how
plate
easy
with the
it is.
dynamic duo behind Giant Cocktails Podcast, where cocktails and the San Francisco Giants collide in the ultimate sports meets spirit showdown. Then it goes on. So we are definitely, I love that. ChatGPT for the win.
All right, and YouTube. Here we go. Checking YouTube now. We have one comment from a month ago. It says it's from Robot 101 or RB0T101. Anyway, happy Christmas, Ben and Matthew. Off season feels like a long time without you twice weekly. Also known as a semi-weekly. No Justin Turner, obviously. All the best to you and folks. Roger.
Shout out to Roger.
Yeah, shout out to Roger. Thanks, Roger.
Roger's my favorite guy. I like him.